notice it's very common in the fighting arts these days for people to make a sh sh sound while they're training. This never used to exist, but it's so widespread, I figured I'd better give it some thought.
Come on, breathe.
I even saw it happen in Okinawa now.
This is the way we start to become strong.
Since in old style karate we learn to exhale rather strongly during movement and liberally use the kiai, I thought this shh shh might be a more efficient way to do this, but I was unconvinced. From my medical training, I knew the mechanics of respiration pretty well, and I couldn't see how this little spouting of air accomplished much. After all, we're not pressure cookers. So I decided to ask a boxing instructor. He said boxers exhale when throwing punches so that they can inhale quicker and get more oxygen in. This keeps them from getting tired easily during a match. He said a lot of beginning boxers hold their breath and it breaks them of that habit. Well, a lot of beginning karate people hold their breath too, so I understood that. But it didn't make sense to me that shushing was the way to do it. It doesn't take a strong motion of the diaphragm to make a sh sh sound with the mouth. And the purpose, at least as I see it, is to strongly contract the abdominal muscles and propel the diaphragm upward powerfully. That aids your movement and makes your body more resistant to blows received. It's what's going on the inside that results in the sound, not the other way around. I wondered how this shh idea got started because, as I said years ago, no one, not even boxers, were doing this. But I got a clue simply from the widespread practice of shh. And now that we have the term virtue signaling in our collective vocabulary, it becomes easier to see how many people today embrace outward gestures that signify what they belong to. Wear the right brand, have the right slogan on your t-shirt. It doesn't matter how superficial, the important thing is to belong. And it doesn't seem to matter how silly the gesture is. Ever notice how modern thugs hold guns sideways to threaten people? No firearms expert recommends this, okay? No modern gun fires better this way. They learn the behavior from other people. And often, those other people are fictional characters in the entertainment media. Life starts imitating art. So it wasn't surprising to me that I spotted another aspect of virtue signaling in the world of combat that springs from the entertainment world. Specifically, I bet you can't wait, Bruce Lee movies. Bruce Lee had this habit of posing with his fingers splayed, and I'm amazed that 40 years after his death people are still copying him, many without even realizing where this dumb gesture comes from. I tried to tell myself that this was just something people adopted to try to be more relaxed when training for speed, but it just didn't ring true. The last habit a boxer needs to develop is hitting with a loose fist. Granted, they don't have to clench as much as we do because their hands are tightly wrapped, but still. You can see combative instructors all over the internet gesturing with their hands in the Bruce Lee position as they talk. There's this guy whom I like a lot, and this guy, and even this guy who is terrific. If you can see past the muscles, the Bruce Lee fingers are there on this guy. Bruce Lee fingers in Australian karate. Even Charlie's Angels, for crying out loud. All over the internet, countless people doing the Bruce Lee fingers. Not to mention Bruce Lee himself. You can't tell me it isn't a learned and deliberate gesture. I can only assume that this is meant to be a subtle signal in the peripheral vision of the observer that this guy is in the Bruce Lee category. Or maybe they consciously or unconsciously feel that by copying the magic finger position, they will become like Bruce Lee. But it's potentially disastrous for any kind of fighter to let his thumb and little finger dangle out like that. Why develop that habit? Because anyone who has really mixed it up knows that fingers that stick out get snagged and broken very easily. I get mad at myself sometimes for letting my thumb stick out unconsciously because I have tendon damage in them and I don't have the ability to keep them tightly flexed as I once did. And I know what will happen if I get sloppy in combat because I periodically have to wear a brace for this problem anyway. But the Bruce Lee gesture can be seen all over the place, and it's obvious that this hand position has entered the public consciousness because it's how we remember him. I think it's pretty silly to do something that creates a weakness just to keep copying one guy who did it in a movie. My father was an actor, and I noticed that actors never criticize other actors. You'll never hear one say, "Oh, he's a terrible actor," because they're all in the same business. It's an unwritten law that also exists in the martial arts business. People in the business of being martial arts personalities will never criticize Bruce Lee, the patron saint of martial arts actors and wannabes. So, shh, 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 shh. If you want to stay popular, don't mention shh, shh, or the Bruce Lee fingers.